Hello, everybody. We're back. I'm Alex Aquarius. Welcome to the Alex Aquarius channel. Welcome to Stories and Prayer, where we talk about current events, predictions, prophecies, exposing plans of covert operations, and then we end it with a prayer. Because you need a prayer after talking about things like that. It's like, you ever heard somebody say they watched a movie that was so nasty they felt like taking a shower after they saw the movie? The world today, after you just hear what's going on with the news and everything, you feel like just washing your hands or running, going for a jog, cleaning yourself off, cleaning out your ears, what you just heard on the news. And it's not a very nice thing. What I've got for you today are some videos. I'm going to show you the assistant for Wernher Von Braun. He was the man who designed rockets for Germany and then afterward for NASA. After World War II, he moved to the U.S. and he was collected by our government, taken from the Nazi program, from the V-2 rocket to working on the Saturn rocket, which was the rocket that allegedly took the astronauts to the moon. What I'd like to talk about is how this all coincides with a letter that a master Freemason, very high level ranking, 33rd degree or higher, illuminatist named Albert Pike, predicted what would happen when World War III would start between Zionists and the Arabic Islamic world. And that's what we're seeing today already. And I wanted to show you that. Let's look at that letter. This is you can still hear me right now. I was going to show you the letter here. This is on bibliotecapleiades.net. If you've ever gone to that site, it's wonderful. You know the word library in Spanish is biblioteca, and then it's called the Pleiadian Library. I don't believe in Pleiadians, but it's got some New Age crap in there. But there are probably 100,000 links altogether in that whole website. It's like any topic you want to talk about. You want to talk about turmeric. You want to talk about any pharmaceutical stuff. You want to talk about weapons. You want to talk about chemistry. You want to talk about astrology. You want to talk about United Nations. You want to talk about the World Economic Forum. There are links to every single subject that you can come up with. When you're doing a deep dive, this is a great site to go to. And it's got, most of these links are in several languages. They put them out in English, Spanish, Italian, and I believe French. But Albert Pike in 1871 wrote a letter to his European counterpart in Europe named Giuseppe Mazzini, and he said, earlier he already described what, this was in 1871, he described 3 world wars that would happen in the century. And I'm not rolling that. Oh, the video's running. Like, who the heck has control of my mouse? So what is happening here, make sure that we're still on. Can you read that letter? It says the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the offenses, of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati. In other words, all of the people in doing their covert operations and having their conspiracies have all organized together. And they're going to take advantage of the differences between Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. This is the plan of the Illuminati to have Zionists specifically the state of Israel and the Muslim Arabic world destroy each other. That's happening today, folks. Right now. You're witnessing it. Right now, we're having bombs in Iran and bombs in Israel. And we've been waging war over there since the false flag attack on 9/11. And now, here we are, 2.5 decades later, and we finally invaded Iran, which was the final step in the plan to invade 7 countries. And it also goes in line with these predictions from the Illuminatists themselves, like this letter from Albert Pike. He's buried in the Masonic Temple in Washington, D.C., by the way, under the floor, under the checkered floor. He's that important. There are some other people buried there, I think. Also, Geronimo, the Native American Indian, I believe, is to be buried underneath that floor. But what you want to look at is this attempt. Hold on, let me wet my lenses real quick. I have to put water in them. Saline. I have hard lenses. And I have a fan running and it dries them out. There, I can see. Okay. Now, when Zionism, this is exactly what's going on. You know, the state of Israel, when you talk about Jews, Hebrews, Yiddish, whatever languages you want to talk about that come from that area, Aramaic, dead languages, live languages, everything that is Hebrew, does not represent the state of Israel as it is set up, which is called Zion, which is Zionism. And they're not the same. You have a lot of Orthodox Jews in Israel that will tell you that their religion and their culture is not Zionism. That is a separate attachment. It's something completely different. So what we are, it's exactly like Albert Pike said in 1871, that political Zionism, state of Israel, and the Arabic Muslim world will mutually destroy each other. Can you believe that? That's their plan. That's their plan. It's not like one of them is going to win. They want them to mutually destroy each other. And then what's going to happen to Christianity? Because, you know, there are 3 Abrahamic religions that have Abraham as a father in their religion. Of course, Christians do, and the Jews do, because we have the Old Testament. And also Islam also has Abraham and are descendants of Abraham through different lineage. It all goes back to Abraham. So it talks about the Christians will lose their compass and their direction. It says, then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will eliminate those destroyers of civilization. And the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. So we're talking about just nasty. This is what everybody's against. Everyone that's a good person, that's a Christian today, that is waking up and is finding out that there are these control groups that are controlling the world, and you look at the Epstein documents and everything that's been released, even though everything is redacted, you find out what all of these people are up to. They just fly around the world and party together. And they say, hey, why don't we pump this much money into that country and we'll have it go to war with the other country? Yeah, let's do it. And it's like a chessboard to them. Everything's like a chessboard. And they put the money out there and they have the control. And they live in a world where they can commit no crimes. That's why they don't get arrested normally. Especially in ratio to the amount of bad things that they're doing. You know, even Jeffrey Epstein was convicted as a sex offender, but he how many thousands and thousands of offenses did he commit before actually being convicted of that one? It's not sidetracked. So back to the letter from Albert Pike. The Third World War. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue between Israel and Zion, between Arabic Islam and Zionism, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. That sounds like Trump and his White House and what they're going through right now. You know, that America has to go to war with pressure from the small country in Palestine. We shall unleash the nihilist and the atheist, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. At the very end, he says, the last sentence says, this manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Wow. So if Christianity was completely destroyed and no one believed in it anymore, and at the same time no one was atheist anymore, that implies that they've found a God to follow and adore. And these world leaders are going to put out Lucifer as, like he says, they will receive the true light. Think of the torch on the Statue of Liberty. That's what that torch stands for. It's the Baphomet torch. It's the light of Lucifer, the torchbearer. They will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into the public view. Now, what I don't get when they talk about this is if they're saying that there will be a destruction of Christianity and atheism destroyed at the very same time, and then the doctrine of Lucifer will be brought out. Well, then, who is God to us right now? The God that I pray to, the God that I've seen in visions and experiences, and at different points in my life, I've had some pretty excellent things happen. Then I know that wasn't Lucifer. Who would Lucifer be? There is talk, we're told of a story of a war in heaven where one of the highest angels of God was Lucifer. But he thought his plan was better than God's, and he proposed that everyone on earth would be submitted to what they're saying right now in this letter. If they take over totalitarian regime, total control of the earth, you will have no power or sovereignty. That is what Lucifer proposed in the pre-existence, according to a lot of Christians. And his plan was rejected. And God said people are going to have the, I'm thinking of it in Spanish, libre albedrío, freedom to worship however they choose. And if Lucifer comes along, you're going to have to follow all of his rules. And there will be punishments for those that are broken. And that's how things are going to be. But God didn't want it that way. The creator of this world and the father of all of our spirits did not want it that way. But then what I don't understand is for these people who rise up in the ranks through secret societies and they get to 33rd degree Freemason, the double-headed eagle, the 8-pointed flattened out pyramid cross, the Templar cross shape with 8 points. There's 2 points on each leg. It's basically a squashed pyramid. How do those people get to a point where they think in their hearts, if they're born just like you and I were, and they have pure hearts, if they're not born with an evil heart, how can they just think about it and say, wow, Lucifer's plan is better than God's? Let's fight and cause bloody turmoil, and we'll release the nihilists, and everybody will utterly destroy each other, and there'll be war and destruction. And then the pure light of Lucifer's doctrine will be brought out finally into public view. That just sounds like nasty, insane nonsense, just garbage. And I don't even understand that. Why promote that? Like Albert Pike, if you've seen who I'm talking about, let me show you. Albert Pike. There's an Albert Pike statue honoring the Confederate General Albert Pike. Okay, he lived in Little Rock, Arkansas, and he owned a newspaper there. He started printing, he brought a printing press there, and he started a newspaper. But at the same time, he was also a Satanist who belonged to the Freemason fraternity. And he also became the highest ranking Illuminati member, Illuminatus of his time. And that's why he's writing this letter predicting the plans of what's going to happen. And he's right to the pinpoint on the details of what's happening exactly right now, today. We've got Zion fighting the Arabic Islamic world. And this was the plan for World War III. We are in World War III now. Make no mistake. So what I'm looking at now on my screen, this is Carol Rosin, Wernher Von Braun's assistant when he started working at NASA. You don't see that. I was in this window. That's her. But it's wild. This is Albert Pike. He's the one that wrote the letter in 1871 that I've just been reading. And actually, if you look up this, this is actually a video from my channel, Alex Aquarius. I did about 8 years ago. Albert Pike's letter to Giuseppe Mazzini in 1871. The plans for World War I, II, and III. Who had more rank, Albert or Giuseppe? I wonder. Giuseppe was over Europe at the time, or maybe just Italy or that region. I'm not sure if it was all of Europe. But when I read these paragraphs here of this letter, can you imagine? This is a secret document. This is a secret plan. These Illuminatists are so organized that this plan was known and written about in a letter from one man to another about events that are exactly happening right now. Right now. Since these war started with Iran. Once you have Israel fighting Iran with bombs and you have attacks on both countries, we're at full war. And this is, as it says right here in the paragraph, the war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, in paragraphs, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Okay. Now, what happens to the Christians, like I was talking about before? Christians are going to be disillusioned because I think what's going to happen is there is not going to be a second coming like Christians talk about and plan. Some people even believe in rapture. Some people believe that Christ will literally come down from the sky. I think, my personal belief is that, there are things that are lost in translation over the thousands of years in the stories. But I think when Jesus comes down through the sky, he's literally appearing to people individually. because you hear about it a lot. And I've got my own experience. And when the Lord is in contact with several individuals on the earth, that he wants to spread the word out and expose Lucifer and his minions, which today in those terms, that's what we call Zionism. What else is Zionism? It's a plan to take over the world. It's not democratic. And it involves bloodthirsty turmoil and warfare to get there. You know? How can you be this beautiful, kind, benevolent leader, Lucifer, with your pure light of your doctrine and leading the world, when you had to create so much crime and sin and murder and all of the other abuse and things, that everything bad in the world, to get there? And then once you've got totalitarian control of the planet, then what? You suddenly become this benevolent, nice God? No. So who wants to promote this plan? Why would, I'm looking as Albert Pike, why did Albert Pike sit down and say, I want to be a member of this and push it forward so that Lucifer wins and he takes over the world? Well, dude, haven't you heard, about the bad things that occur? People that believe in God as Heavenly Father don't believe in the checkerboard black and white scenario where you have to commit crimes to understand being a good person. Or even the elites where they have the method in their madness where they will tell you hints about things that they're going to do before they do them. And if you don't stand up and interrupt their organization and it occurs, then they say, you pitiful fool, the signs were all out there and you did nothing to stop it. Therefore, you gave us permission. That's what they do. They have to declare. You're always going to find exposing materials like this letter, like I'm doing right now. You're going to find things on YouTube that talk about this letter that Albert Pike wrote. And I think a lot, along with the alien technology that's going on, we've got another thing that's going to happen at the same time. Wernher Von Braun, the person in the photograph of this video, he started the V-2 rockets for Germany, for the Nazis, and then he developed, like I said, the Apollo rockets. But on his deathbed, he told his assistant, Carol, he said, the last step is going to be the fake alien invasion. And let's hear what she says about that. Let's get her. Boom.
In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space. And I said, teachers don't stop until June. He said, no, you have to understand, this is February, and we have to prevent the weaponization of space because there is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies, he said, against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system, the first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids. And then he would repeat to me over and over, and the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat. Well, at the time, I kind of laughed when he said asteroids, and when he said extraterrestrials, I knew I wasn't going to deal with that subject.
Let me stop there. Okay. I've been talking about Albert Pike and his letter about the Zionists destroying the Muslim Arabic world, and that will be World War III. And then Christians will be disoriented and trying to find new insight to who to adore, because nothing happened according to their books and prophecies. You're going to find out that the resurrection did not happen, that's not a thing that bodies do. That's not the way God planned it. You don't need the elements that right now your meat package that you walk around in. When these elements decay and fall apart, you die. You can come back. If you come back to Earth, you are literally conceived and born again into another body through parents. You don't come up out of a grave. And I believe that you have a choice after this life if you want to come back or not. But if you stand in line and you get in the queue of people just heading back toward the moon cycle to get back into a womb and be birthed again, they're just doing it ignorantly because people are standing in line. It's just like people. Have you ever seen social experiments where people will go out and they'll just stand in a line somewhere, like in a park or a plaza, and they'll find other people just kind of will stand behind them. And you can get a line going if you just pretend there's a line going somewhere. People's mentality when they're out in public, when they're socializing with other strangers, is weird. And we do weird things. And we will just follow where the crowd's going. And it's the people like me that automatically see the crowd going this way, and I realize it, and I turn around and I look the other way and I say, what's back behind us where we're coming from? Why isn't anybody going that way? Or what is it? Why is everybody going this way? And I start questioning everything. I question everything. I've always been that way. I asked my mother and father so many questions growing up. But the interesting thing is, like I've said, I'm melding together two things. The letter from Albert Pike describing World War III and the destruction of Zion, Islam, atheism, and Christianity after World War III. And it's happening right now. And tying that together with Wernher Von Braun, the ex-Nazi rocket expert who developed the Saturn V rocket and started the Apollo program, telling this woman, Carol Rosin, that the final step is going to be a fake alien invasion. So after all those things destroyed that Albert Pike talked about that I just listed, then there will be a fake alien invasion, or simultaneous, who knows. But you're having two predictions of two people who were in the system, who know they were embedded. You know, Wernher von Braun was a Nazi at the top, working as a right-hand man of Hitler. And then he was brought over Operation Paperclip to the United States and continued working on rockets for the Apollo program, for NASA. And he worked with Walt Disney. Walt Disney's in that picture, in the thumbnail. It's wild when you think about when he told this woman, don't forget the last step is going to be a fake alien invasion, but it's going to be our technology. I've heard where Wernher von Braun also said that we had help from other beings from another world on how to develop our technology when he was asked. We were helped by beings from another world, from advanced races from another world. Can't remember how he worded it. But here it is, folks, to figure, if you wake up and listen to what I'm saying, someone who's done the research and can put together for you the prediction of Wernher von Braun with the prediction of Albert Pike and put them together. Look what's happening on the alien front. You've got the drones last year. You've got all kinds of videos. I'm looking on YouTube all the time, and I find there's a guy named James, Jamez. I like his channel. Look that one up, Jamez. I'll give him a shout out. He's always got a collection of all of the submitted to him videos of UFOs, all kinds of saucer crafts, tic-tac, things people see, the triangle crafts, which are human, by the way. Whenever you see the triangular craft, that's human. Stan Deyo, D-E-Y-O, said that because he worked on designing them when he was in Pine Gap, Australia. So that ship is really not actually run by the U.S., so to speak. There seems to be a kind of like an Air Force that belongs to the New World Order that includes Australia and other English-speaking ex-colonies of England, of the British Empire, that are all together, and maybe some other European countries and maybe some other countries we don't know of, but they all together are promoting this triangle. It's called the TR3B. If you look, let's look really quick. What is TR3B? I'm just going to type in here TR3B. TR3B. Triangle. Okay, you see this craft? Let me make sure you got the screen. Okay, that one there, yeah. Look at this. Generally, this is the design. It has this light in the center. The light that's in the center is the generator that generates the wave field, the center point energy through high speed revolutions of an element that's kind of like mercury, liquid mercury. You spin it really fast and you have it at certain RPMs with certain vibrations added. Things start to dissipate and the walls disappear and suddenly you're weightless, you have no gravity, and you're like in your own little time-space craft. It's how all the anti-gravitic crafts work. And then these three lights on the corners are thrusters that are for steering and balance. But the main weight of the craft, if you've ever seen this craft disappear, I've seen it where this light in the center gets really big and it surrounds the entire craft. When you generate that field and then expand the diameter of it to where it envelops the whole craft, it's really a fancy piece of machinery that we retro-engineered from crashed alien vehicles. But that's the TR3B. They try to tell you that it's a jet. It's kind of like a stealth, like this one. The Aurora, that's what they'd say it's the Aurora program. But that's not the same thing. That Aurora plane right there, that's a stealth technology. This one I've seen flying in a video that was taken by a soldier in Afghanistan. This exact one with these rectangular ridges on the side looked just like that. And there was another video I saw where these soldiers are standing on a mountain peak and this thing is spinning like on a top, but spinning slowly. It's rotating. And it flies through this canyon below them and it comes up and it flies right over their ridge, right over their heads. I have not found that video again, but it was this craft, exactly looking like that one. This was, if you remember, in Illinois, back in, I lived in Illinois at that time. This was back in around the year 2000, 1999, 2001, 2002. There was a huge UFO sighting that everybody knows about it. There were like over 100 police cars that chased this thing from between Illinois and Missouri. It started in southern East St. Louis, and there was a flying triangle. I think what they were having was mechanical malfunction, and this triangle was just hanging in the air over the region around East St. Louis in Illinois. And it was hanging there, and it wasn't level. It was sagging to one side, kind of like in this picture here. But it was just sitting there. It wasn't making any noise. It wasn't moving, and everyone could just see it. It was just in the sky with no visible propulsion system or wings, and it just was sitting there. But I think it was making some type of noise or emitting some type of smoke at one point. And then it just floated. It floated like someone in a raft on the ocean. It just went with the current and just kind of drifted across the Mississippi River past the arch, and it went into Missouri. And there were police officers that chased it from different cities and counties in Illinois, and they just kept going all the way into Missouri, and everybody chased that thing. and there were probably 200 police cars. Has anyone heard of that? That was a TR-3B. And yet it's one of the biggest unidentified flying object reports that we've had in the United States. And what it was a TR-3B malfunctioning. There's a TR-3B over Paris, France. I don't know if you have the one that shows them flying. These are videos. Triangle sighted over Winchester, England. This craft is everywhere, and this craft has been around for a long time, 30, 40 years now. It's an old technology. This one right here, the TR-3B, it is not new. So could you imagine if you have that platform, like let's say it's a chassis, you could put anything on top of it. You know, like if you got carbon fiber materials, you can make a really lightweight miniature city. What was that movie? District 9. Remember that craft was just floating over the city and those tentacle face monsters were walking around with humans and they were trying to get their craft repaired. I don't remember what that movie was about, the plot, but you could take this triangle as a chassis and put anything on it to make it look like something else. It could be a floating city. It could be, you could make it in the shape of a giant human being. You could, or a dragon. One thing I also wanted to show you, if I still have this picture up, was the statue. No, I think I got rid of the statue. I don't know if any of you are aware, when we're talking about the plans for World War III and the takeover of the Illuminati over the entire world, that's going to involve taking China, Russia, and the U.S. Now, there are three mafias. The biggest mafias in the world are the eagle, the bear, and the dragon. The eagle is the United States mostly, and Australia and England. And then the bear is Russia and a bunch of ex-Soviet bloc countries. And then the dragon is China and the Chinese mafia and rule over Asian countries. The three top mafias of the world that are within themselves supporting Zionism. Within factions. It's hard to describe when people say who's in charge and who's running the whole thing. It's difficult to say because sometimes one faction or the bears get their program out there before the eagle and the dragon or one of the others does. But it's really hard to pinpoint. You could say, like some people say, oh, it's the Freemasons. Well, only a percentage belong to the Illuminati, or only a percentage would be part of the real operational mob of the eagle. Doesn't mean just because you join, you become a master mason, you're at the third level, that you're an evil person and you know about all those things. You know nothing. Intentionally, it's designed that way. You don't know. You go step by step through each level, given increments of knowledge. You know, that is just the way I am. I'm an intellectual person. I consider myself to have an average, slightly higher than maybe average intelligence. It's dwindling now with my age, but how would someone just accept the philosophies and the doctrine and everything that goes along with going step by step to can you imagine if you joined, let's say you wanted to be a Freemason. I'm not putting it down to any individuals that are listening to this. If you're a Freemason, that's great. I'm just not a joiner. Doesn't interest me. And I don't want to go somewhere where I get to, like, say, level 12, and I want to know what it takes to get to level 13. What do I have to do? I remember going through the scout program and getting merit badges, and I was a star and then life. And you go through different steps before you become Eagle. I am an Eagle Scout, speaking of Eagles. And they say that the Boy Scout program was created to be a precursor to being a Freemason. But I enjoyed scouting. I enjoyed the activities and camping and some of the merit badges, and I learned a lot. It makes a kid smarter. But I do not enjoy, as a man, setting aside time where I want to go and meet with the group in a building and do ceremonies and rituals over and over and over and over again, no matter how important and powerful they are. That would just bore me to death. And I don't have respect. I've always been not a rebel, but I broke some rules growing up and got in a little trouble. And I had a general disrespect for authority as a kid. And there's a little bit of that in me where I don't want to destroy things, but I just do not have an adoration for people as leaders of an organization to where it's the whole mentor protege construct. If you're going to learn something, like you're going to learn woodworking and you want to become a master, you have to first be an apprentice. And so it is in Freemasonry. But in Freemasonry, you go in as an apprentice, but you're not learning woodworking. Actually, you're not. It's even though it's called masonry, you're not actually laying stones and cutting stones and learning how to use a spatula with cement. It's not even about that anymore. It's just about learning a bunch of doctrine. And you just keep going through levels and you learn more doctrine. And when you get to the top, you find out it's the pure light of the doctrine of Lucifer. And a lot of people, I think, when they get that high up, are going to go, if they're Christian, like, wait a minute, this conflicts with my church. And I know there are a lot of churches. When I was Mormon, I remember my mother telling me that, Freemasons can be Mormons, because we knew several. I know a lot of Freemasons. And I know Mormons that are Freemasons. But from what I know, I can learn more just by getting on the computer and going online than I could by going to a lodge meeting and repeating rituals over and over again, or having someone assigned to me to teach me what's next, because I actually have gone through and read it all. I actually found libraries, Masonic libraries online, and I've read books. There was one called Prominent American Freemasons in American History, and it talked about Brigham Young, and his mentor was Jean-Pierre Desmet, a Belgian Jesuit missionary. And he was the second president of the Mormon Church. So here you had, if you know how the Jesuits usually will work their way into an organization and then take over that organization, and they spread out that way. They're, what do you call that? It's like not a provocateur, but they ingress themselves into a church or a university. I heard one, a dean at a university had discovered that one of his professors, for some reason, was a Jesuit who was trying to subvert and teach trying to change the curriculum of the university, because he was a Jesuit. And the dean found out that the man hid the fact that he was Jesuit, because I don't remember the whole story, but he actually got rid of him and fired him. Said, you've been exposed. You no longer work here. We don't want you as a infiltrator, provocateur. But a lot of it started when Jews were persecuted and they had to go and pretend to be Christian in Europe. So they called them the conversos in Spain. The converts, the conversos were by day, Christian by day, Jewish by night. But then you also have the man who even started the Illuminati. He was what was it? He was a Jewish man that taught at a Jesuit university. He taught law, Adam Weishaupt, and he was Jesuit. So it's very confusing. So then when you see in the Vatican the Jesuits and the Black Pope, and you see all these guys wearing yarmulkes like they're Jewish, where's all this come from? I've even heard actually that hat is not Hebrew in its origin, that a millennia before the time of Christ, that the yarmulke did not exist. And I don't know that much about it, but from what I've heard, that's not an original article of apparel for them. So, wow. Where are we on this topic now? Let's see. Let's listen to what the rest of what Carol says, what Wernher Von Braun said.
And now we hear in the news just today, this week, that they've slid in another enemy. Only this time we're going to protect our satellites. In other words, we have to have some reason to spend these trillions to waste these dollars on a space-based weapon system, and they're all lies. This is a system, he told me, that would never protect anyone. Even back then, he talked about suitcase bombs. He talked about chemical, viral, bacterial, biological warfare, that these space-based weapons would never protect us against. And then he told...
I just want to make a comment. Did you ever hear of the Iron Dome over Israel? They had such a prolific space missile defense system. They called it the Iron Dome. And it was supposed to prevent any missile from ever hitting Israel. And right off the bat, Iran fired these missiles into Israel and hit buildings. That's the first thing I thought of. What happened to the Iron Dome?
Me that in fact, if you travel around the world, which I did after he died in 1977, I met with people in over 100 countries who were friends. They didn't want to build space-based weapons. I became a space and missile defense consultant, and I worked with people around the world. I became an advisor to the People's Republic of China. They don't want to build a space-based weapon system, and he told me back then that they didn't. He said, go to Russia. They're considered to be the enemy. I got on a plane by myself. When I got to Russia, I had a list of people that I had read out of the newspaper. Chernenko was in office then. He was the only one I didn't get a chance to meet. They introduced me to everyone when I got there. And when I got back, I said, oh my Lord, this man is telling the truth. There is no threat. And I've been waiting until this day for 27 years, and I'm expecting the spin to happen, because he also explained to me that as a military strategist, as a person who worked on the MX missile, which I did later, he said, you will find that there is going to be a spin to find some enemy against whom we have to build space-based weapons. And now we should expect the spin, because he said part of the formula for the intelligence community is if they might have a weapon, then we have to consider that they do have these weapons. So now they do have these weapons, so now we have to build these weapon systems. And that's the formula, except that it's all based on a lie. And we have witnesses here today that have shown you that these extraterrestrial beings, that these craft that have come here are now not UFOs, they're identified flying objects, and we know that they have beings in them. And we have witnesses here who have told you that they can shut down our missile silos, they can stop a rocket going into space that's a test. We have witnesses here who have worked in the classified departments, who have the courage to come forward here to support what Wernher Von Braun told me back in 1974 to 77. And I will testify before the Congress that when I founded the Institute for Security and Cooperation in Outer Space, which I shut down a few years ago because I didn't believe we had a chance with this huge, integrated around the world, complex weapon system, that we had any chance at all of transforming that war industry into a space industry that could provide benefits, like Dr. Greer has said, of global warming. We can end that situation of that problem. We can end the energy crisis. We can build now non-polluting technologies. Wernher Von Braun used to tell me that we could have cars back then that drove around off the ground. He described this to me on beams so that we have no pollution on this planet. And we can solve the problems of the people that are urgent and potential, and the other animals and the other cultures on Earth and in space. And we can end the arms race without dislocating the industry jobs, without disrupting the economy, by transforming, Wernher Von Braun told me, the war industry into a global cooperative space industry that will provide, he said, finally, more jobs and profits on this planet than during any hot or cold wartime, more products and services that can be applied directly to solving the problems of this planet. And we can have a whole planet now that lives in peace on Earth, with all the cultures on Earth, and with all the extraterrestrial cultures in space. And these are words that Wernher Von Braun told me in 1974. And I will testify before the Congress under oath about everything I have said and more. Thank you.
Thank you very
There you
much.
go.
Note the part about first it will be the Russians, then it will be the terrorists, then it will be, the final card will be the faked alien invasion. This is what she said back in 2001, before 9/11 happened. And those of you who have been keeping up with 9/11 and the truth movement and information that has come out about the attacks know that the so-called...
Hold on. Let's go back to what he... Shout out to 3D Time Space for this video that I captured.
About everything I have.
Thank you very much.
Note the part about first it will be the Russians, then it will be the terrorists, then it will be, the final card will be the faked alien invasion.
Okay, so Russians, then terrorists, then the fake alien invasion. Now, how does that fit into the letter from Albert Pike? So first, Russians. That was World War II. And World War I and World War II. Then terrorists. Then you're going to have the Muslim extremists of the Arabic world fighting the Zionists, then aliens. So what's not included in Albert Pike's letter here is the alien invasion, the fake alien invasion. Maybe it's because the technology did not exist yet, and that part of their plan was not fully understood until they had time to further promulgate. That's a big word. I don't even know what it means. Their plans. So this is the gravestone of Wernher von Braun. Psalms 19:1 is on his gravestone, and he refers to the firmament. What is the firmament? The heavens declare the glory of God. What are the heavens? When you look up at the sky, everything you see, that's the heavens. And the firmament sheweth his handiwork. So what's the difference between the heavens and the firmament? Firmament. That, to me, that's a stationary, solid level. It's like a level. A building that's like the second floor. You know, it's actually beyond the 12th floor. But when you look at the ancient cosmology of the flat earth, there is a firmament above the stars. You go through, you have the earth and all of the planets going around in circles around the North Pole. And then you have, after you pass, let's see, Moon, Mercury, Mars, Sun, Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune. Is that 7? Yeah, there's 7 planets, including the sun, over a flat plane of Earth. That was the cosmology that, even in Iran, their cosmologists, the ancient cosmology of Iran was the most developed. And they talked about the flat. It wasn't until only in the last 400 years since the Vatican that we've had the Vatican putting out with astronomers the idea of a globe. And then if you believe that rocket launches, and if you believe we did not go to the moon like I do, then you can see how everything can be faked. A rocket goes up in the air, people watch it launch, and it goes out, and you notice it goes in an arc, and then it starts flying sideways, level, out of view. And then where does it go? We're told We go on faith. No one has ever seen it, but we're told when it's out of view, yeah, that rocket reached 17,500 miles an hour. It's reached the orbit escape velocity, and it broke free, and it is now heading toward the moon or whatever. They just tell you that. All they have to do is just say that. Like Adolf Hitler said, the bigger the lie, the more the people will believe it. You tell such extreme lies that people have to really use mental gymnastics to comprehend what you're talking about. But they just have faith and they believe it because you said it and you've got the power. That's how I believe the space program has been regurgitated on the people of the world, of this globe model. And when NASA fakes it, the Russians know it at the top mafia levels between the eagle and the bear and the dragon. And China goes to the moon, but the eagle and the bear know that the dragon faked it. And when the eagle fakes it, the dragon and the bear know that the eagle faked it. And when the bear fakes it, the eagle and the dragon know that the bear faked it. So at the highest levels of mafia and all of these controlling rulers of our world, and they go through bloodlines, and they have the control. They've been in control for thousands of years. And even though today they're using these wars that we're used to, because it's been in the last century, that we're going to have these final 3 wars, and we're in the 3rd one right now, to initiate the totalitarian control and doctrine of Lucifer. So Lucifer will be God. Once they're done, you're going to be told, Lucifer is God. Here's how you adore Lucifer. And I don't know what that religion's going to look like, what type of churches we'll go to, what we're going to be told. You're not going to have a choice, because atheism will not be allowed and Christianity will not be allowed. Neither will any of the other religions, even Judaism or Islam, any of the Abrahamic religions. Everything will be wiped out. And you're going to have one doctrine. It's going to be the Luciferian doctrine of Lucifer. I don't understand how the leaders like Albert Pike and these people through the last centuries, people in the Vatican, how they promote Lucifer and want Lucifer. Is it because they're all compromised? Kind of like the Epstein file people that are compromised. They're blackmailed and they stay in it because they're blackmailed. But it's someone at the top has to keep pulling these strings until it happens. And at that level, they control you not only in this life, but in the next life. Let's say if you believe the earth is a globe, when you die, you're going to be thinking, I don't think I'm going to find God. I grew up on a infinitesimally small planet in an Oort cloud with millions of other planets, probably just like Earth. Who am I? And I'm just floating in space. Whereas if you believe in the flat Earth and the infinite plane, it's got hundreds of continents on it or more, that go out in rings from the North Pole beyond the ice walls of Antarctica, then you're going to know, when you're a spirit, look up and fly upward, raise your vibration, go up, 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 up. You have to go through the planets. They line up for you. You know, time is the spatial perception of lineation is different when you're out of body and the planets line up in front of you. I had this experience once. I went through them, and I went through one, and the next one was in front of me, and I sped up and I went through the next one, and I sped up and I went through another one. But then when you go through the stars, they're in water, so you go through like a wormhole. It was almost kind of like that movie with Jodie Foster about when she drops in that ball through that time machine and she's shaking in the chair and going through a wormhole through all those curves, except this was straight ahead. Where I was headed was a pinpoint. You have to focus on a pinpoint and try to go as fast as you can into the pinpoint. Everything merges. If you've ever driven really fast in a car, you know what I'm talking about. Everything around you just kind of blurs into the pinpoint in front of you. Your focus gets your focus range gets smaller and smaller to a pinpoint. When you do that, you arrive at the firmament, and the firmament is where God is. And if we look up, let's see, Finder. Where are we? I want Google Chrome. Finder. Why is it only showing me Google Chrome? That's weird. Where are my photographs? Let's see if I can get it a different way. Photos. Let's go to shared albums, recently deleted, recently saved. No items. Let's look up God's throne, because that's where the firmament is. Let's look up God's throne image. Boom. If you've ever seen paintings like these, artwork like this is the firmament. Excuse me. I've heard people talking about the firmament as like the like in the Truman Show, there's a level at the ceiling where we can't get beyond it. We cannot get beyond low Earth orbit. We can't go above 275 miles, 300 miles max. When the rockets go up and they go into space, like that. Remember the women that allegedly went up in that rocket recently? I don't think they went up at all. I think the weightless portions were filmed in a zero gravity plane with the set inside of the plane with the window images of the outside inside of the plane, so that these ladies never had to go up in a rocket and land. When the way that capsule hit the ground, did you see how hard it hit the ground? And it created a huge dust ball. That would have compressed some spines. It was a hard landing. So we've got here the firmament. The firmament is I know it, the throne of God, John's vision. That's a video. Where is it? Let's see. I don't want to go to videos. Let's look for an image or images. Have you ever seen the image of the people all around the throne? Look at that. The Lord is always on the right-hand side of God. I've seen that, people. I had an out-of-body experience, and they were standing, though. The light emanated from them, and everything was dark. It was just like the three of us, and there were not any angels around. Let's see. I don't see the artwork I'm looking for. But, something like this. You're going to have people around. There will be a throne of God, and there are steps. I've seen them. I've literally seen them, folks. But let's say if this was me, I was there in front of these steps. I only remember a few, and then they were standing, but they were tall beings, like 7.5 feet tall, 8 feet tall. Not giants over 10 feet tall, but very tall individuals. But the light, that color of that light, that celestial light, came from their skin. It just beamed right through their bodies. Here's another one. Also, I don't believe that angels have wings. I think that just carried over as a traditional artwork form to depict an angel with wings. because they're flying. You know, if you're going through like, like my experience where I went through planets and I had an out of body experience, I did not have wings. In fact, I was a ball, I was a sphere. It was transparent. I think it was my Taurus, my energy toroid that is my spirit, my allocated fractal spirit of God. And this is very similar. You know, people have seen this. This is why all of these paintings and artworks exist, and they're all very similar. What's this one? Jesus and God sit. Let's see. So Jesus would be in the middle with God on the side. I don't think that would be proper. Isn't Jesus on the right-hand side of God? That would mean this person is God. But this person looks more like God. Anyways, close enough. You have the steps. You have the clouds. But not the angels with wings. When I saw it, it looked, let me see which one looks the closest. Maybe this one without all the arches and all the Catholic cathedral artwork. Let's see. Forget that one. Let me type in Lord and God. The Lord and God standing. Okay. Pretty much all the same artwork. But you know what this is the firmament. Oh, here it is. See this one? This is the one I like because it's without any of these people there. I was like, where this man is, I stood there and I spoke to the Lord, and he was on the right-hand side of God. God didn't say anything, but it was dark. We were above the stars, and there was no light coming from. I mean, the light came from them. There were no other light sources other than their beings. And it was an answer to a prayer, and I got a very one-word brief answer from the Lord to a prayer. And the answer was the word por qué. Why? Why baptize? What is baptism? Which put me on a lifetime quest to find out what baptism was, which I found out is a construct from Babylon. It represents the death and resurrection of Tammuz, who became Baal, the sun god. Baal, the same one that's the architecture of the building on Epstein's Island. That Baal worship. When Tammuz, who married his mother, died, she said he resurrected on the third day on winter solstice, and on the 25th, he went to the sun, and now he's your God. His name is Baal. So the whole origin of sun worship and Baal is predicated on resurrection. And so you can see why the Lord doesn't like baptism. So I'm a cross-free Christian. I don't believe in sacrifice, and I don't believe in resurrection or baptism. But when here in Psalms, when it says, the firmament showeth his handiwork, the firmament is the top level. That's where if you get through all the planets and you get through the stars, you will get to this level. And the earth is below you. You can see through the floor. The one that was like the one I pulled up here. This one, when you look down, that there is a mist. There is a cloudy mist on the floor just like this. And I waved my arm and it all parted, and I could see right through the floor. And I could see the earth. There was a giant, it looked like earth, but it was flat. It was like this big infinite plane to the horizon in all directions under our feet. It did not rise up to eye level. And I looked and I did not recognize like the Americas or Europe or any continents that I knew on any map. I was 20 years old. But it looked to me like there were hundreds of islands and continents. And I just thought, wow, if this is where God is, I must be in some other world or in some cloud on the other side of the universe with this gigantic world that's way bigger than the globe Earth. Turns out it was Earth. So I've seen it. That's why when Flat Earth stuff came out on YouTube in about 2015, I found it with Eric Dubay. And I just thought, I knew it. My whole life, I've been holding up magazines up to the window on airline flights, trying to line it up on the horizon to see if there was any curvature on the horizon. There never was. Sometimes the windows can be convex and it gives the illusion. But that is the firmament. The ceiling over our skies, which is above the whatever is the ISS, that is not the firmament. The firmament is beyond the planets and the stars. Have you ever seen the body of Nut? Nut is an Egyptian goddess, and she's made of water, and the stars are inside of her. And you will see her depicted body of Nut image. I don't want to buy nuts. Oh, quit that. Egyptian. I have to put in more word. Body of Egyptian. The Egyptian goddess. Yeah, picture of Nut, the Egyptian goddess. Here we go. This is Nut. Look at this one. This is the one I remember. See how they said the body of Nut, it stretches across the sky. When you look up at night and you look up into the heavens, you're looking at the goddess Nut extending her body from horizon to horizon, and she's made of water, and all of the stars are inside of that body. Now, this is true to some extent. This was the way someone described it long, long time ago through imaging in Egypt, but I can tell you the stars are in the waters above. I went through it. I went through it. Was I sped up and I sped up, and then suddenly it got really, really bright, and I went so fast. It's a poor comparison, but if you compare it to like warp speed on Star Trek or the Millennium Falcon when it went into warp drive, and you saw the lines just streak and the pinpoints in front of you, and when you go fast enough and high enough, you eventually go through the waters, and it gets so bright because the stars are in there. And when you come out the other side, this is on the other side. Once you get through the body of Nut, so to speak, this is the firmament. So anyway, there are beings that live from other planets and dimensions that are over the plane in our world, and they haven't attacked us yet, and they probably won't. They leave us alone for the most part. You remember the guy, what was his name? Randy, no, I want to say that this, not the singer, Randy Travis Walton. The craft injured him when he stood too close, and it was flying, and he got electrical zapped, and they took him for 5 days and repaired his body and then brought him back. I don't think they want to hurt us. If they wanted to, they could just stop the human race right now, tonight. It's no problem. But they don't. So don't worry about an alien invasion. There will be no fake alien invasion. Wernher Von Braun told us on his gravestone, the firmament showeth the handiwork of God, the glory of God. Interesting that he puts that on his tombstone when he was the designer of rocketry. You know, have you ever seen the rocket that's in the Aztec sculpture in the rock down in Yucatan in Mexico? There's the picture, the depiction of the Aztec astronaut with the tubes in his nose and all of the levers and things around his feet. Have you seen that one? I think, this is just a guess, I think the Aztecs actually built rockets. Maybe they were steam powered and they launched them. And they launched them near the beach. You always see rocket launches near a beach. You have to have a beach so that the rocket can fly out of view and then just fall back into the ocean. That's all it does. And then you tell your people, oh, that astronaut is now with God. He's gone up into the heaven. And he'll be back. And he will bring us the word from God, what God wants us to do. You know, they control the people through imagery and trickery. It's kind of like David Copperfield wizardry of magic, how the astronauts will get up in a rocket and then slide down the fire chute slide and go underneath the pad. There's a rubber room underneath the launch pad at Cape Canaveral where the astronauts go underneath the rocket launch. And they don't even have to be in the rocket. They just slide down the chute. And somehow they do it just like a magic trick where the magician gets from being inside of a box on the stage to sitting in the audience right next to you and you don't even know it. And then suddenly the spotlight turns to the man sitting next to you and it's David Copperfield. And it's like, oh my God, how did he get to be sitting right next to me? Holy crap, how do they do that? I think they have have you ever noticed whenever there's a rocket launch, they either just don't show you, the door's closed and there's steam coming off the rocket and they start doing the countdown. They say, we're going to launch, will be in 14 minutes. And you just see, they say they're filling tanks and you see vapor coming off the rocket and it's just sitting there. Used to be in the Apollo program, you would see the scaffolding where they would take the elevator up and then get out and you had all these men. There must have been 7 or 8 men walking around. And have you ever seen the video about the gorilla that walks through the people passing around basketball? It's like you can not see something. It's an illusion. Let me show you that. If what I'm saying is, I think that somehow they got the astronauts up the scaffold, they go up the ladder, they're on camera, but there are walls and partitions and in and out of the capsule where they can change and trade uniforms and numbers so to where they come in and out of the capsule, but it could actually be the astronauts themselves that put on a worker's uniform and slide down the slide and go down to the rubber room. Because you cannot have any of your star actors go up in a rocket in case there's any failure. Your program's over with and those guys are dead. So if you want them to fake a return from space, like when the space shuttle would come back, they would just, I think what they did was they took off from somewhere like, let's say, a secret Air Force base, maybe Groom Lake, with a space shuttle, and they went up to, say, 70,000 feet. And then they come down, they say, okay, we're ready to return from space. And then all you hear is, there's a narrator saying, the shuttle is now approaching, altitude is now 38,000 feet. And then the news, someone says, there it is. And the cameras all turn and you see the shuttle returning from space. When it actually just put the actors in it and took off from an Air Force base somewhere and landed on runway 33 at Kennedy Airport, California. And I think they did that just over and over again. All you have to do, and I think the Aztecs did it as well. Because if they had sculptures and carvings of people in rocks with the tube in his nose, with all these levers and machinery, with what looked like fire and smoke coming out beneath, it's a depiction of a rocket. I think that they did that. And they must have had rocket technology. Wouldn't be that hard. If you've ever boiled food or had something pop and explode on the kitchen countertop that was hot, and you figured out, oh, that's propulsion, then you could start to imitate it or mimic it. And maybe they use steam or maybe some other fire technology. But my belief, and it's just a big wild guess, is that the Aztecs would fire up rockets that would go out over the Gulf of America and disappear out of view, just like we do today. I mean, have you ever noticed, every time you see a rocket launch, especially with SpaceX, have you seen the videos where the one's going sideways and it's got the big, funny-looking keyhole-shaped wake around it, and there's orbs in it now, and they're showing what's going on. And why is the thing going so slow and it's going sideways? It looks like it's going horizontal with the plane of the surface of Earth instead of going up. I remember asking my father. My father worked at Mission Control, by the way, at Johnson Space Center. And I remember asking my dad as a kid, like, how come the rocket, when it takes off, it curves and starts flying sideways? And my dad said, it just looks that way from the camera angle, but it's still going straight up. And I look back at it, and my mind tells me, no, it's not. And I wonder how my father could not figure that out. He couldn't see it. And why people don't see that. It's just obvious to me. When you look at a rocket, and from whatever camera angle is on the ground looking up, zooming in, that rocket's flying horizontal to the surface of Earth. It's going north, south, east, or west. It's not going straight up. And what it does is they go way out into the waters in the ocean, into probably, restricted waters, somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle or something, and then it lands, or somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico or America where ships can't travel. And I think they salvage some of the debris now, like SpaceX does. But you actually, like I said, when the capsule, you could fake it really easy if you want to do a Copperfield magic trick. You send up an empty rocket. You have it fall into the ocean. You film everything that the astronauts are doing in a studio. Any of the weightless things that you need, you film inside of a zero-G plane. You've got 28 seconds to a maximum of about 38 seconds before the plane has to pull up and go back into the parabolic sequence. And then when it's time for them to come back to Earth, like what I believe they did with the Apollo missions was they put the capsule in a cargo plane, and they took the actors, they put them in the capsule, they went up in the cargo plane, and then they pushed the capsule out of the back of a high altitude cargo plane. And then the parachutes open. And then the news station says, there it is. And you see the 3 parachutes, and there's the capsule. Those brave astronauts coming back from the moon. And it literally just dropped out of a back door ramp of a cargo plane. Really. Think about that for actually for a moment that really happened that way. It's completely plausible and doable. I figured it all out. That's how they did it. It's like, it's crazy. When you look into the science behind orbital velocity, or what's called escape velocity, there's what they say is the speed of the rocket as it orbits the Earth. It has to get to 17,500 miles an hour before it can escape the Earth's rotation and orbit and start heading out to the moon. But how do we know that? And then other scientists will base their calculations of how much the rocket's going to weigh, how big it has to be, how much fuel it has to carry, where the launch site is, and everything about it based on that number that someone made up in a Copperfield-style magic trick. So when they say 17,500 miles an hour, that's the magic number. And the NASA scientists will argue with you. Well, we did all the calculations, you dumbass, and we know what we're doing. But they're literally going on faith, on everything that's been told to them from previous Copperfield-style magic tricks. And it's a perfectly doable, workable scenario I'm talking about. There's no coincidence. This is Walt Disney. This is Wernher Von Braun with Walt Disney. Here he is when he was a Nazi. Here he is with the Apollo rockets working for NASA. Can you imagine? He went from that with the Nazi uniforms to this just within 20 years. That's not that much time. That was Operation Paperclip, where we brought over all the best scientists from Germany after World War II. So the people that lived in Argentina when I was there in the 80s, in Cordoba, they were all Germans. I was actually going to learn German. There were so many Germans in Carlos Paz, Cordoba, that I was going to get a German course and start learning it, and then I got transferred out of there. I would have spent at least a couple of months learning German. Oh, what was I going to say? Interesting also is the alien crafts. You know, I've had a dream, a lucid dream that I had maybe 25 years ago, maybe early 90s, that I was running down State Street in Provo, Utah, where I went to Brigham Young University. And there was a gas station on a corner, and it had a 2-car garage where they worked on cars, and they had some gas pumps. And for some reason, I was in that garage. I was running down the street, and this UFO flying saucer was chasing me. And I ran into that garage, and I was hiding next to like a Coke machine or something. And the UFO came up and just parked over the intersection, and this telescoping doorway came out of the craft and came up just right next to me. And that's where the dream is. I don't know if I was supposed to get in, and then it would telescope me back up into this craft. It was weird. It was such a vivid, lucid dream that I still remember the details today. And that was at least 25 years ago when I had that dream. And it's really stuck with me. You know, do you have dreams that stick with you? You know, if someone were to ask you and get you alone long enough, like on a camping trip, you could say, there is one dream that I had or is reoccurring. You know, as far as reoccurring dreams, sometimes those could be things that have actually happened. I had an experience with my mother that involved gray aliens that we completely forgot about for 48 years until I started having flashbacks. And I went and asked her about it. And she said, oh, yeah, they were in the East Yard up by the road. I'm like, oh, my God, what? Got goosebumps. It's true? Holy crap. That really happened. Oh, my God. And I've had regression and remembered more, but I don't remember what the visit was about or what they were telling me. But so anyway, the idea of the show today was to tie together for you guys what's going on with Iran, the war, what's going on with Zionism, the Muslim world, what will happen to Christianity. The nihilists will even get rid of atheists and Christianity at the same time. And Wernher Von Braun says the final step will be the alien invasion. So what's going to happen to a Christian after Zionism and atheism fall? And then you see how they're just vehicles. These constructs of ideology like Zionism, they're only used as a means to an end. And then when they get to the end, they destroy it. You know, just like the U.S. You know, I think that in the very last days, I don't think the United States of America and its Constitution are going to have a standing with the Admiralty Maritime Law of the New World Order. Sorry to say. I can be a patriot, but looking way into the future, that's the way things line up. So, what was I going to show you? There was another image I was going to look up. I showed you the firmament. Albert Pike, the TR-3B, Rosen, New World Order. That's about it. So unless someone has a topic or we have any participants, is there anyone in the stream that's looking? If not, I'm going to sign off. It's late. I got my computer working. I'm back, and I just bought a new laptop, and I'm working with OBS right now to do this show live, and I'm working right now with the controls and pulling up windows, and it hasn't frozen. The Mac OS screen capture is working. I don't have to keep resetting it. Like I had a MacBook Air I bought 4 years ago with the M1 chip. Now I have the M4 or the M5 chip. And it works way better because now everything's faster. It's not glitching. And I don't have to reset the screen capture when I show videos or anything. You know, if I was to show like me talking on this video I made 8 years ago. Let's see.
Of a Judaistic movement from its inception that was the Catholic Church and the Vatican. Now let's read Albert Pike's biography. Pike was born in Boston, Massachusetts, son of Ben and Sarah Andrews Pike, and spent his childhood in Byfield and Newburyport, Massachusetts. His colonial ancestors included John Pike, the founder of Woodbridge, New Jersey. He attended a school in Newburyport and Framingham until he was 15. In August of 1825, he passed his entrance exams and was accepted at Harvard University. Though when the college requested payment of tuition fees for the first 2 years, he chose not to attend. He began a program of self-education, later becoming a school teacher in Gloucester, North Bedford, Fairhaven, and Newburyport. In 1831, Pike left Massachusetts to travel west, first stopping in St. Louis, where Peter Desmet was. I interjected that. And later moving to Independence, Missouri, where the Mormons were. I'll inject that. In Independence, he joined the expedition to Taos, New Mexico, hunting and trading. During the excursion, his horse broke and ran, forcing Pike to walk the remaining 500 miles to Taos. After this, he joined a trapping expedition to the Llano Estacado in New Mexico and Texas. Trapping was minimal, and after traveling about 1,300 miles, 650 on foot, he finally arrived at Fort Smith, Arkansas. Settling in Arkansas in 1833, he taught school and wrote a series of articles for the Little Rock, Arkansas Advocate under the pen name of Casca. The articles were popular enough that he was asked to join the staff of the newspaper. Later, after marrying Mary Ann Hamilton, he purchased part of the newspaper with the dowry. By 1835, he was the Advocate's sole owner. Under Pike's administration, the Advocate promoted the viewpoint of the Whig Party in a politically volatile and divided Arkansas.
I think this is so interesting that he was in Independence, Missouri. I've been there. The Mormons have a temple site where the Joseph Smith, was it Joseph? He consecrated the land so that a temple would be built on it. And the Mormons are still waiting for that day when they build a temple in Independence, Missouri. And Albert Pike lived there. You know, Brigham Young, the second prophet of the Mormon Church, was trained by a Jesuit missionary from Belgium named Peter Desmet, Desesmet. Peter Desmet met with Brigham Young in winter quarters when the pioneers were crossing the plains going to Utah. And he told Joseph about the Salt Lake Valley and Ensign Peak, where when they crossed the mountains, they would see a lake and a peak, and that would be the place. So when Brigham Young was sick and they woke him up in the wagon and said, I think we're here, look. And he looked up and he said, this is the place, drive on. And I think in his mind he was thinking, this is the place that Peter Desmet told me about when we were in winter quarters. Drive on. I swear I figured out everything. Let me show you also this page, Biblioteca Pleiades. Watch me spell it if you want. Biblioteca Play. See there, it's already spelled out there. See that one, Biblioteca Pleiades. It's the Pleiadian Library. I've known about this thing, about 18 years now. If you go to the main page, it's a library of suppressed knowledge. You can really binge through this thing. You'll love it. I don't want Facebook. I don't know. End up in Facebook. I can't stand Facebook. Let me go back. Biblioteca. Pleiades.net. Let's go to, okay. This is in Spanish, but if you want to go and look at it in English, there's the fair use notice, Espanol, English. This site emulates a virtual library. Let's say you want to look at atomic bombs. Let's just say you go to search and you say, or let's say Roswell. Roswell. Just type in Roswell. Boom. Now, how did I get to... I don't want to be in DuckDuckGo. I'm typing on the search. Oh, they use DuckDuckGo. Okay. Roswell. Okay. If you can find the links the day after Roswell. That was a book my mother had, chapter 3. Okay, if you go to Biblioteca Pleiades, there's a ton of information. But once you get used to how the outline works and how you go through it, you'll find just documents after documents. It's kind of like going through the Epstein files. There are just millions of links. And when you get to the bottom, it says back to contents. Let's see where this one goes. Okay. Here's actually this book my mother had. It was on the bookshelf in my house in the living room when I grew up. I later remembered as an adult that my mother and I had an encounter in the front yard, but I didn't read this book when I was a kid, but I flipped through it and I knew my mother had it. It was written by Philip Corso. Talks about the desert, the convoy to Fort Wright. I'm going to read the whole book on here actually now. I'm going to save this website. But go to bibliotecapleiades.net. Let me go back. And let's say you want to go to, all you have to do is type in Biblio, okay. Let's pick a different topic. Let's pick, what about COVID? Remember, this is a library of suppressed knowledge. CBS News, NBC News, COVID, pandemic, Wikipedia. There are... let me go back. Instead of searching, it keeps sending me to DuckDuckGo. Let's just go to the initial page. Let's look at the weekly, the new things that come out. Okay, if you want to look right now, we're in 2026 in March. Okay, these are the suppressed knowledge articles that have come out. Iran's Houthi allies lie in wait on another key oil route in the Red Sea. What's the most massive star in the universe? Why did U.S. rail attack Iran? Trump is finally eyeing an exit from Iran, but will he take it? Thus spoke Zakoye, standing on the shoulders of the Overman. The inevitability of collapse. Galaxies without dark matter. This is a part I tune out. I don't listen to any of this cosmos crap. As a flat earther. Scientists turn probiotic bacteria into tumor-hunting cancer killers. Okay, watch. You click on that. It's always got this font, with this three-dimensional font when you're on the site. So you look at these engineered bacteria were able to find tumors in mice and release cancer drugs directly inside them. This living therapy could open a new path for more precise cancer treatment. Okay, when you get to the bottom, usually you have more links. It says return home or return to the defeat of cancer. So you go here and you're on another article. And now here is a whole outline of links. Okay, there's some are in Spanish, some are in English. Where's the English ones? Did you know that natural cancer treatments are hidden from you, but why? And then let's say you click on that and you read the article. And then you can go to conventional cancer treatments versus alternative. So now we're in cancer treatments. Now you go to the bottom of the page, return to the defeat of cancer. Okay. I want to look up anti-gravity. So let's go to the home page. Biblioteca home page. I'm going to have to type it in there. Let's go to home page. Now, what was I going to look up? Anti-gravity. 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 Now, here's one. Let's see. Biblioteca Pleiades, anti-gravity. Anti-gravity research from the New York Herald Tribune from 1955. Let's go down. Back to anti-gravity. There we go. This is how you have to get through to the topic page kind of from DuckDuckGo. Now I'm at the index page for anti-gravity. Here are all the contents for anti-gravity in here. You just click on one. Inventions of Henry William Wallace. Okay, go back. The Beefield-Brown effect. I've heard of that. What was that? But you can go to any suppressed knowledge you can think of. Let's say Nikola Tesla. You go search. Let's look up things on Nikola Tesla coil. I want to know about the coil. The Tesla coil. Tesla's coil for electromagnetics. Do you know he designed the alternator that's in all cars, trucks, and vehicles? And the design has not changed since he designed it. There's no better design. Previous patent. Valvular conduit. You can go on forever binging on Biblioteca Pleiades. So I recommend that you go look up Biblioteca Pleiades. All right, everybody. So I don't have any comments or anyone participating right now. So I hope if you see this video later on and you found it already recorded, God bless you. Let's have a prayer and end it so I can go to bed. My computer's working and I'm happy. Heavenly Father, thank you for giving me the time to share these points over things occurring in these last days that we're in, with the wars predicted and the fake or artificial things that will happen when the fake invasions will occur, all to help Lucifer take over this earth that you have created. How does that not happen, Heavenly Father? Please help us to know and know what we can do to help you and serve you and be good people and always improve and always learn. And God bless everyone that's gotten this far in this video. Please. Thank you. Amen. All right. Over and out. This is Alex Aquarius. Bye-bye.